She sat alone at the party again, not because nobody invited her, not because she was shy, not because something was wrong with her. She sat alone because the conversations around her felt hollow, because small talk felt like sandpaper against her mind, because she would rather spend 2 hours inside her own thoughts than 2 minutes pretending to care about things that meant nothing to her. And for years, she believed something was genuinely broken inside her. It was not. And if you recognized yourself in that story, you need to hear what comes next. Welcome to Felis Wisdom. Today we are talking about the psychological traits that look like flaws from the outside, but are actually signs of an unusually sophisticated mind, operating at a frequency most people around you simply cannot tune into. This is not a flattery video. This is not empty validation. This is behavioral psychology and neuroscience explaining why certain people consistently feel out of place in ordinary social environments, why they think differently, feel differently, and why that difference is not a disorder, it is a distinction. You prefer depth over small talk. The first sign, you find casual surface-level conversation genuinely exhausting in a way that most people around you do not seem to experience. While others can spend hours discussing celebrity gossip, sports scores, and weekend plans, you find yourself mentally checking out within minutes. Not from arrogance, from genuine psychological incompatibility. Here is why. Research in personality psychology shows that people with high openness to experience, which is one of the 5 core personality dimensions, have brains that are literally wired to seek depth, meaning, and complexity in their interactions. Surface-level conversation does not just bore these individuals. It actively drains them neurologically because their brain is receiving insufficient stimulation to maintain genuine engagement. The cat has always known this intuitively. It does not perform interest, it does not feel. It engages only when something genuinely captures its attention. And it disappears without apology when it does not. If you have spent your life feeling vaguely exhausted by conversations that everyone else seems to enjoy effortlessly, that is not antisocial behavior. That is your brain telling you it needs more than what is being offered. You feel emotions more intensely. The second sign, you feel things at a depth and intensity that frequently surprises even you. A piece of music can move you to genuine tears. A beautiful sunset can stop you in your tracks for minutes. A conversation can stay with you and replay in your mind for days afterward. People around you often seem to process emotional experiences and move on quickly. You carry them differently, longer, deeper. Psychologists call this trait sensory processing sensitivity. Research by Dr. Elaine Aron found that approximately 15 to 20% of the human population has a nervous system that processes both emotional and sensory information significantly more deeply than average. This is not weakness. This is not fragility. This is a neurological difference in how your brain processes experience. The same sensitivity that makes you feel pain more intensely also makes you feel beauty more intensely. The same depth that makes certain experiences overwhelming is the same depth that gives you access to levels of empathy, creativity, and awareness that most people never reach. You think before you speak. The third sign, you have been called quiet, reserved, difficult to read. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you refuse to say things before you have thought them through completely. While others fill silence with whatever comes to mind, first you sit with ideas. You turn them over. You examine them from different angles. You wait until you have something worth saying before you open your mouth. In a culture that rewards the loudest voice in the room, this trait is consistently misread as disinterest, passivity, or lack of confidence. Neuroscience tells us something very different. The prefrontal cortex, which is the brain region responsible for complex thinking, deliberate reasoning, and impulse control, is significantly more active in people who think before they speak. This is not the brain of someone who has nothing to contribute. This is the brain of someone whose contributions are worth waiting for. The Stoics understood this principle completely. Epictetus taught that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. The discipline of silence before speech is not a social limitation. It is a cognitive advantage that most people never develop because the world never asks them to sit still long enough to find it. You need time alone to function. The fourth sign, you do not just enjoy solitude, you require it. After extended social interaction, regardless of how much you genuinely enjoyed it, you need time alone to decompress and restore yourself. Without it, something in you starts to feel frayed, irritable, disconnected from yourself. Most people around you seem to refuel through social connection. You refuel through disconnection. This is not misanthropy. This is not depression. This is a completely legitimate variation in how human nervous systems process social stimulation. Research in introversion psychology consistently shows that introverted nervous systems experience social environments as inherently more stimulating than extroverted ones. The exact same party that energizes one person depletes another, not because of attitude, but because of neurology. The cat is perhaps the most honest embodiment of this principle in nature. It loves on its own terms. It connects when it chooses to. It disappears without guilt when it needs to. And it returns when it is ready, not when it is expected. Your need for solitude is not selfishness. It is neurological maintenance. And honoring it is one of the most psychologically intelligent things you can do for yourself and for every relationship you value. You have a strong sense of what is wrong, the fifth sign. You have always had a finely tuned sense of fairness and integrity that most people around you do not seem to share with the same intensity. Injustice bothers you in a way that feels almost physical. Dishonesty in people you trust does not just disappoint you, it genuinely disturbs something deep inside you. You have ended relationships over principles that others considered minor. Psychology calls this moral sensitivity, and it is far more rare than most people realize. People with high moral sensitivity have nervous systems that respond to ethical violations with the same urgency that other people reserve for physical threats. Their brain treats injustice as a genuine danger signal. This makes you difficult to manipulate, impossible to gaslight once you are paying attention, and deeply loyal to the people and principles you believe in. It also makes you harder to be around for people who are comfortable with dishonesty, and that discomfort they feel around your standards is not your problem to solve. What all of this means. Here is the deeper truth underneath all of these traits. None of them are disorders. None of them are defects. None of them require fixing. What they require is understanding. The reason so many psychologically sophisticated people spend years believing something is wrong with them is not because they are broken. It is because they are surrounded by environments and people who were never built to understand them. You were not designed for every room. You were not built to fit every conversation. You were not meant to be comfortable in every relationship. And the sooner you stop trying to compress yourself into spaces that were never built for someone like you, the sooner you will find the ones that were. The cat never apologizes for being a cat in a room full of people who wanted a dog. It simply exists, fully, on its own terms, without revision. That is not arrogance. That is the deepest form of self-respect. You are not broken. You are not too sensitive. You are not too quiet. You are not too intense. You are not too much. You are operating at a frequency that most environments were not designed to receive. And that is not your failure. That is simply your nature. Find the rooms that were built for you. Find the people who do not require you to turn yourself down to be comfortable around them. Find the spaces where your depth is not a burden, but an asset. They exist, and they are worth every moment of patience it takes to find them. If this video made you feel seen in a way you have not felt in a long time, hit that subscribe button right now, because this is exactly what Felis wisdom is about. The deep, timeless psychology of understanding who you actually are. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 5 signs you recognized most in yourself. I read every single one. Stay sharp, stay strategic. This is Felis Wisdom.